yesterday, this is what our org chart looks like. If you look at the MREA, and we're gonna get to the level 6, that's pretty much what it should look like. Yesterday, I mentioned some of the differences, but I will tell you, it doesn't look exactly like the MREA because I wasn't smart enough to just go back to the MREA every time I needed to make a hire. So I encourage you guys to follow it. The reason why you should follow it is because it's the most profitable way you can run your business. That's why they put that model the way it is. It doesn't say it's the easiest way to organize your business. It's the most profitable way, right? But again, as I mentioned yesterday, it's a model, which means it's just there to give you guidance. You might tweak certain things. It might look completely different for you, but it should give you guidance because the goal is for you not to have to reinvent the wheel, right? That's the amazing thing about this company, guys. We have amazing agents that we have access to. So instead of, if you're gonna hire an ISA or you got to that level that you need to go to that, don't just go do it. Look up the people that are crushing it on that specific area and contact them, right? I'm a huge believer of doing or following people that have done it. Not people, anybody can sit here and tell you how to do things that they've never done, okay? And I will say one thing, and this is something I believe. About a month ago, I kind of requested to have a conversation with Gary Keller. And my point with him is, hey, Gary, you wrote the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and I've done it. Look it up. Look at my work chart. It's exactly what you put on the book. I want to know the next part. You haven't wrote The Billionaire Real Estate Agent yet, and that's what I'm looking for, right? So that's the conversation that him and I are having, and he is just unbelievable. But again, I feel like I earned the right to have that conversation with him because I've done it. I followed it, right? So again, if a lot of you guys, you might have questions, you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to help you guys out. I'm always accessible. But again, do your work, right? Do your homework first, right? Get to a point where you're like, hey, I've done it. I'm not coming here with excuses. I'm coming here with questions, and I really need your help to get to the other level. And I'm there. I'm very happy to meet, chat, do a Zoom call, and whatever. So anyway, for the people that were here yesterday, is there any ahas from yesterday that maybe you can, you can just speak up and unmute yourself that would be very encouraging to get it started if you guys actually got something from yesterday.
I actually got a quarter into the audio book Compound Effect.
Oh, awesome.
Holy moly. I wish,
right?
Man, I'm only a quarter in and it's super, super powerful. It's the truth. That's a good book.
That's awesome. That is so awesome.
I appreciate that.
Anybody else?
I love how you built it. I think it's important for everybody to understand that even though you don't follow the model exactly, it is something that you have to look at with your team. And I think that just helps. So many people, I think, read MREA and they're like, if I don't do it the exact way, then I can't make it work, or they get frustrated. And I think it's always nice to hear somebody say, like, I messed it up. I did it backwards and we figured it out, but you're continually trying to align with it. I think it's just a really good point that I hope everybody took away yesterday.
Awesome. There was somebody else that was trying to say something.
Oh, hey, I'm driving, so that's why I'm just on the voice. But yeah, just something real simple. I got a couple of golden nuggets yesterday from you, so thank you for that. But just something real simple. The idea of building your business as one of profitability or income versus equity. It didn't even dawn on me there's some people that will build that business and it doesn't look like they're making much with it, but they're building some great equity that they can sell the business later.
Yes. Guys, a huge example of that is there's a Brazilian billionaire. He owns the Orlando City Soccer Club. And he was asked that, he basically became a billionaire by selling his business in Brazil. He decided to move with his family to the US. And then he bought their soccer club in about, I think it was 2012 or 13. And somebody asked him, like, dude, why would you do that? There's no money in owning a soccer club. Like, it's not a profitable business. And that was his answer. He's like, I'm not looking for profit. I'm looking for equity. Guess what? At that time, he bought the soccer club for about $200 million. Today, it's worth over $800 million. Okay, so that's the point about equity, right? So anyway, again, not suggesting that needs to be the way, but just think about that when you're making your decision on what direction you want to take it.
And one person shared an aha in the chat. They said it was to keep a chart by their desk and see where to fill in the gaps.
Yes, awesome.
That was Coco. Thanks, Coco.
All right. Anybody else? I think we're good, right? Awesome. All right, so guys, again, just to summarize from yesterday, do the math on your area. You want to net $1 million? Do the math backwards. Hey, $1 million, right? And then you have to do, what's my profit margin? That gives me, in this case, the MREA suggests a 42% profit margin. Then you need to generate $2.3 million in GCI. Then you divide by your commission amount. That gives you the volume. Then you divide the volume by your average price point. That gives you the amount of transactions, right? If we're using 3% commission and 550,000 as an average, we're talking about 144 transactions. If you're doing it how the MREA tells you to do, you will net $1 million or more. Okay. So that's it. Now, yesterday we went, and again, we focus on these things. Who do you need to become? When do you need to grow? And how can you do it? Okay. This part about who do you need to become, this is one exercise that I would suggest you guys do. Okay. A lot of you, I bet, will tell me that you're not a morning person. Okay. A lot of you will tell me that, yeah, you're a morning person, but you don't really exercise. And then a lot of you say, I don't do either one of those things, but I'm a great reader, right? Think about some of the things or some of the habits that high-level individuals have, right? And it might become like very daunting to implement all of those. But look in your market center, right? I like to do this exercise since we have such a little amount of time. I don't want to go through it, but I will usually ask on this call, like, who are the people that wake up early, right? And then who is the one that wakes up the earliest every day? And then I'll go, who's the person that reads the most amount of books? And then who's the person that's the healthiest, right? And then who's the one that exercises the most, right? My point is, on this call alone, there's people that do that at a very high level. Well, contact them, right? In your market center, who is the person that wakes up early every morning? Figure out how they do it. Like, get some tips from them, right? If you graduate from the compound effect and start reading Atomic Habits, he will tell you exactly some really good tips on how to do that. But as an example, if you're gonna wake up early because you can get the most out of your day, having your shoes ready, having your gym equipment stuff ready, it allows you to do it quicker, right? One of the things is, if you want to read books, one thing you might want to do is put a book on top of your pillow. So before you go to bed, you have to touch that book, right? That will force you to remember that you should read 5 pages, 10 pages, right? There's a lot of those things that you can do, but I'll tell you, most people at the top, they're doing those things, right? One thing that I really want you guys to remember is this. I didn't do any of these things until about 2 years ago, when these things became like, hey, I should really consider start doing these things. Okay, why is that? And I'm talking about this now because, again, we got to level 4, right? When you get to level 4, you're freaking working your ass off. You're trying to crush it. You're grinding every day. Excuse my Portuguese. that you're really going after. You don't have time for that stuff. You don't have time to read a book. You don't have time to exercise at the gym. You're just freaking calling and getting to appointment. Jen knows what it is when she was a listing agent doing 75 transactions a year and like not having a life. Like that, like, don't tell me that you're waking up at 5 and exercising and reading a book and, you know, and eating super healthy. I was pretty much eating Dunkin' Donuts every day on my way to work because that was it, right? Now, you get to this level, we're talking about level 5 and above, you have leverage in your life. So why am I talking about these things now? It's because now it's more about you spending time on yourself and becoming the person that can really lead other people. So it's not necessarily you doing it. It's not you necessarily going to the appointments. It's not you having to do whatever activities. It's really you giving guidance, right? Like you have to be that person that everybody else is going to look up to. And when they come to you, you need to be ready. You need to have the content to really like deliver, right? So it's really more about thinking, right? And being like driven and having a goal and all of that versus just doing it. Yesterday, I mentioned to you that I have more time than I've ever had, right? And it's because I have a lot of leverage. Now, in my head, my head, if you ask my wife, my mind is going all the time because I'm always trying to come up with, man, we got to 3.7 million in GCI. How do I get to 6 million in GCI? Right? Like that's, you know, and then I'm like looking up who's doing 6 million in GCI. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing all these things, but I'm also now need to figure out how does a CEO work, right? That's why I like reading really good books, exercising, being like energized to be able to take on those tasks is extremely important. So at this level, those things become a reality, right? Like you have time to wake up early and meditate and do all those things. And you have to make a priority to like, hey, I'm going to spend time with my kids. I'm going to do certain things that are a must. Does that make sense? Any questions, comments on this before we move on?
I would just say burnout is real.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes you need to work extra hard to get to a certain point, but then you have to acknowledge that if you continue, burnout is a reality. And you can't afford not to start taking care of yourself in these ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like being an agent, sometimes I feel like you're kind of on your own because everyone's so entrepreneurial. You could talk to colleagues and stuff. So when you're reaching these levels, I understand there's the books. I understand you reached out to Gary recently, but like who are like people, or was it just books or certain people in particular that helped you?
So to me, well, let's put it this way. I've always been, my story growing up was this, is that my parents, just to kind of paint a quick picture, at one time when I was about 10 years old, or actually between 8 and 10, both of my parents worked for the state in Brazil. And both of them did not get paid for 6 months. Literally, like didn't get paid for 6 months, neither one of them. So we were in so much debt my whole childhood. But every year as a child, I would think, this is the year that things are gonna change for us. And here's one example. One year, my father was able to, in the Amazon, like owning a truck is a big deal because you can transport wood, you can transport a lot of things. So truckers actually make pretty good money. So he drove to Sao Paulo. He took a bus 3 days and 3 nights to Sao Paulo. He was able to secure a loan and he bought this truck. And that was like, man, this year, this is it. Like now this is the solution. Guess what? On his way from Sao Paulo to Rondônia, he got stopped by the federal police, and the truck that he happened to buy had a cloned VIN number, which means that it was a stolen truck that had a cloned VIN number. And he like got arrested for a night, was able to explain, and you know, they let him go. But we lost, I don't know, 30,000 reais at the time. But again, remember in Brazil, the minimum salary at the time was less than 150 bucks a month. Okay, so, right? But for me, it was always like, man, like this year. So I've always thought about like, what can I do this year? I've never been the guy that says, hey, 20 years from now, I want to be, I'm just concerned about this year. So when you say, who do you look up to? I've always been like, who is the person doing a little bit better than me, right? And that's why I'm saying, for me, a huge tool at KW was always being able to go through the reports and look it up. Like, where is my ranking in KW? Where is my ranking in my region? Where is my ranking in my office? If you're not the number one in your office, why are you worried about your region? If you're not the number one in your region, why are you worried about the country? Does that make sense? But those numbers will tell you a story. One story that I learned big time, and this is an important story for you guys to understand at this level, is that the guy that was number one in my region, because I was already number one in my office, he had 3 agents making over $100,000 a year. And as much as, you know, he's doing a ton, I was doing a ton, but I only had 1 agent making over $100,000 a year, which showed me that the reality was, in order for me to surpass him or get to his level, I needed to now get 2 other agents that would produce that much for me to be at his level. Does that make sense? And literally, I learned that just by looking at his numbers, right? So I think that's an important thing. So I would discourage you from contacting people that are doing way better than you, like, or on a whole other level. I think the key is, if you're a 5-person team, find out who's the 5-person team that's more profitable, that's more productive, that's more, right? Or the 6-person team. Don't, like, talking to the person that has the 50-person team is not gonna really help you.
Yeah.
It's a whole, and you know, they've passed that stage so long ago. Yeah, they might give you some guidance, but it's just not who you really should be getting from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's beautiful advice. Thank you.
Yeah. So, all right.
People are going to start leaving the call if they have less than 15 members.
No, not at all. By the way, I'm psyched that there's 45 people on this call, which means there's only 4 people that don't want to make $1 million. So I think that's wonderful. Now, talking about skills and leverage, right? Again, I showed you guys that graph. And again, to me, at the time that I heard it, one of the biggest lessons I've learned from Gary is, if you want to go from 5 people to 160,000 or 2 million people, the biggest thing is the 5 people that you have, including yourself. So what you do for yourself is you exercise, you read, you do all those things, right? To become that person. But then you need 4 other people that can get you there, right? So when we're talking about skills and leverage, you need to really start thinking, hey, this person that I hired 2 years ago, is this the person that's gonna get me to level 6, level 7? And if they're not, that's okay. It just means that they can stay here and they're comfortable here and they're happy here and they're very valuable here. But I need to go and start looking for that next person. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And again, Emily, I think we have that the circle slide. Oh, right, the next one. See? We're so good at this already. So,
which one?
I want you guys to understand this concept. Most of you probably seen this before, okay? We're talking about your circle. At this level, you need to create bigger circles, right? So who do you look up to, right? And again, I just talked about that. Mm-hmm. But who do you surround yourself with? This is the time, guys. If you have a team with 5+ people, you're making really good money, right? Odds are that the people that are your buddies from high school or the people that you're hanging out with don't make nearly as much as you. And they're gonna be the ones saying, are you kidding me? Don't do that. That's crazy. Like you're look at you, you're doing so well for yourself. Like just stay here, right? Why would you wanna risk losing it all? Like those kind of comments. In Brazil, we have a saying, because when you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket and one crab tries to escape, all the other ones try to grab them and they pull them back, right? And that's what ends up happening. So the circle is very important. One is who you're hanging out with, right? I truly believe you're the sum of the people you hang out with. So you really need to create bigger circles. That's why I really try to be friends with Jen and JP, because, you know, I want to get there. So they always ignore me, but that's okay. It's, you know, it's the persistency.
No, but to that point though, which is why I like to hang out with you, the conversations that we have are different than the conversations that you have with your friends who work in retail, or maybe they have a great job, but they're not interested in reading new books or growing their net worth. Or so the conversation, I always tell people, it's just about the conversation that you're having. Is it a conversation that elevates your thinking and who you are, or is it a conversation that is all the same stuff you always ever knew?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it doesn't mean you can't be friends with them. It just means that, hey, these are the girls I go to bowling with, whatever, on Fridays. And that's totally cool, because I just let the steam out and we talk about whatever we talk about, right? But these are not the girls that I'm taking advice on business, advice on finances, advice on marriage, or whatever it might be, right? But so you just need to make that clear. I will tell you guys, again, just being transparent. I love fishing. Fishing is like one of my passions. That's really what takes my mind somewhere that I like. And I have this group of friends that I've known since I moved to the US. One night, New Year's Eve, I'm having a great time at this party. This guy comes next to me. We're drinking a beer. I say to him, "So, what's your New Year's resolution?" He looks at me and goes, "All you care about is business," and then leaves. And I was like, right? Like, to me, I was like, really? Like, I asked you what your New Year's resolution. There's nothing to do with business. You could have said, "I want to lose some weight. I want to," you know, but like, anyway, long story short, we plan a trip to the Amazon. This guy is there. I have a bunch of other guys, again, wonderful people. We had a great time. At one point at that trip, we're just to paint the picture, we rented this amazing boat in the Amazon, in the Pantanal region of Brazil. This boat had 8 bedrooms and like 5 people in the staff, and it was all of us. So 16 of us, 2 or 3 in each bedroom. One night, we're playing cards and having a good time, and then the real estate comes up. Well, my brother is there. My brother is a real estate developer. I'm like the top realtor in Massachusetts, right? Or like one of the top. And they start getting into the real estate conversation, and I start putting my 2 cents, and we get into an argument. And they're literally arguing to me and saying to me that vacant land is the best investment you can make in real estate. And I was just like, that's just not true. Why? Because vacant land is hard to get financing. Vacant land doesn't produce any income. Like, you know, but the guy was like arguing. So long story short, I come back home. That really bothered me. Next year, we're playing the trip again, and that really bothered me. And then that's when I realized, I was like, you know what? As much as I love fishing, as much as I like these guys, I can't do this anymore. I can't hang out and be in a place with people that are just in a completely different mindset that I am. And by the way, it was a very difficult choice for me to make, but it had to be the choice. And you know what? It was one of the best choices I've ever made, because it really made me, hey, if I don't have that, I need to really go find it, all right? So anyway, this is kind of a personal story, but I hope you guys can understand that you might get to this level. To get here, you're gonna have to find other people. That's just what it is. And if you're not willing to do that, that's okay. You know, you're still happy, you're still making good money, but that's what it takes, right? It's really sacrificing. What are you willing to sacrifice? Now, on this circle, I want you to understand one thing. This is my world, right? the black circle. Within my world, I have Santana Properties team, I have North America Development, and I have Keller Williams Cambridge. I'm an investor at Keller Williams Cambridge. I don't lead the company, but I am one of the owners. This is my circle. I need to have a big enough circle where these companies fit within, right? If I don't grow, these companies are not going to grow. You know, so when you think about your team, you need to make a circle and make sure everybody fits in it. But what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to keep growing. So what does that mean? That means that you have to keep growing as well. Otherwise, they're going to leave. Okay? So, and one of the things that I mean, is that clear to everybody? Do you guys have any questions on this specific topic? No? Good. One thing I want you guys to get, and I think it's been one of my experiences at KW, especially about going, you know, because when I was about growing, I still go to more classes than most people I know. I love, you know, learning from other agents that are doing well. But a lot of the times at KW, we get this message that it's all about value and you're going to provide so much value. And if somebody leaves your team, it's because you didn't provide enough value, right? So a lot of people will feel like a failure because a producer left, or because an admin left, or because of, you know, but in reality, guys, people will leave. People are going to move, they're going to get married, they're going to get divorced, they're going to get hit by buses, they're going to have children. Like life happens. They're going to want to change professions, they're going to retire, they're going to burn out, they're going to do all of that. And a lot of that you cannot control. So one of the advices that I got from Gary on one of his masterminds is that in reality, you will probably only have about 5 people in all of your business that will never leave. And that's a good number, okay? So what he calls like lifers. So it is okay if people leave. You have to understand that. And don't feel like a failure because they left. You just need to understand it and you need to learn from it. You know, I've mentioned this to Jen before. One of my top producing agents that started, my first buyer agent, he started with us. He was doing extremely well. He left in 2018. And it was difficult, but I will tell you, and he's crushing it. He's doing really well. But I'll tell you, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to our team. Why? Because from him leaving, I was able to now make all the changes that I wanted to make, but that I couldn't make because he's been with us for so long and he was used to certain things. Kind of like the idea that I was saying with the model, right? It's hard for me to change the model now that I have all these people in place. Does that make sense? But if one of these people leave, do you think I can go back and fix it and do it right? Yes. So that's what I want you to think about. Don't beat yourself up. Don't think you're a failure. You know, and again, I'm saying this because that was the impression that I've got before, like from going out these classes. And a lot of the times you will provide a ton of value, people are still going to leave. Okay. And sometimes it's going to really sting. The key is, can you learn from it? Can you now, if you made a mistake, not make that mistake again, right? That's what it's all about. All right. So let's keep moving forward. I have to give props to my beautiful wife. She just dropped me a wonderful smoothie here. So for those of you that don't have a wonderful wife like mine, I'm sorry.
Lisa's pretty awesome. Tell her hello from all of us.
She is. Okay, so this is again the idea of the circle. And again, goes back to the idea of reading, being prepared, growing. Right? All of a sudden you hire this agent. We're going to start talking about hiring agents and they're going to kick ass. They're going to be so good. They're going to get appointments. They're going to, if you don't keep up with them, they will leave you. Right? So you need to grow. You need to be better. You need to have bigger goals. You need to provide more opportunities. Like that's the whole idea of the circle. That's why I want you to really think about. You know, again, The company only grows to the extent that you do, okay? That's the bottom line. We mentioned this. However, I want to talk about this again. Yesterday, I put Jen on the spot and I said, what's the most expensive hire you can make? And she said something, I don't remember what she said. And then
she said
a bad one. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I said, the most expensive hire you can make is an agent. I really mean that, especially in the beginning. And I said that yesterday because that's the level that we're talking about, right? When you're in the beginning, you don't want to hire an agent. And the reason why you don't want to hire an agent is because it costs a lot of money. However, right, the example that I made, I got to this point and I realized, man, I can only now really grow to the level of these other people if I start adding agents. They are going to produce, they are going to get, but the key on this that I want you to understand is they are now going to be in front of clients that I could never be in front of, okay? As an example, on our team, one of the biggest source of, actually the biggest source of leads is open house leads. If Emily, Jen, and I, and JJ, all four are doing 4 open houses and one buyer comes to 4 open houses, they might love JJ. They just think he's the right, you know, and the next one will come and say, oh no, Jennifer is definitely the person I want to work with. Doesn't matter how good of an agent I am, if they just don't like my hair or whatever, right? Or I said something that, I don't know, turned them off. Like I can't control that. So eventually, yeah, adding agents to your team is going to be a huge benefit. But that's because you've maximized your opportunities. And now you're bringing people on, they're bringing their own database. And with your admin stuff that you built, you're now able to help them maximize those opportunities. And they can also help you by converting leads, by being in front of buyers that you wouldn't be able to. Does that make sense? So please have that clear. Again, if you guys have questions on this, I'm happy to answer, you know, a phone call afterwards. But I think this is a good point. Any comments on that subject at all?
I put in the chat box when I was selling a lot, we used to talk about this and not to be offended, right? And I think that scenario you just used is perfect, is that not everybody likes pizza. So you're not pizza and not everybody's gonna like you. And that's okay. And it's not a bad thing that somebody liked JJ better than they liked me, or they liked Hudson better than they liked me. And I think that when people become a rainmaker, they have to really let go of being the one that everybody wants to be around.
And I'm gonna give you an example better than pizza, okay? Not even Jesus pleased everybody, okay? Jesus Christ, our Savior, I believe he's my Savior. He didn't please everyone, okay? So I'm not gonna please everyone, neither is Jennifer or Emily or JJ, right? So keep that in mind. So you can't win everybody. It's just a reality. And I love that you brought this up, Jen. One other thing that I think it's important for you to know is that, yes, if you grow, you might lose some of your clients. As a matter of fact, you will lose some of your clients because they want you. They don't want Emily. They don't want Jen. They want you, and they expect you, and they, you know, they think they deserve you and all of that. But you know what? That it's just like the example of the crab that I was telling you. You're trying to grow and this person's really holding you back. So this idea that it has to be you is going to keep you at a certain level, okay? That's just the reality. Again, Gary Keller doesn't have time for everybody. You know, and if you're joining KW and you're a new agent and you think you can just get all Gary's time, he's gonna tell you, yeah, you should go somewhere else because, you know, I just don't have the time, right? But I believe that if you earn the right to be in front of him, you become his priority. I mean, that's what he showed me, and that's why I think the guy is incredible. Same thing with Jen, same thing with JJ, same thing with everybody, right? But keep that in mind. It is something, you're gonna lose some. Every time you win some, you lose some, right? But you, and again, guys, the class is called How to Net $1 Million. These topics is what gets you to net $1 million. Okay, these are the kind of things that I had to learn in order to earn the kind of money, because you're gonna realize that as much as I love you, I can't be the person servicing you. Now, to me, the best way to make that transition is, especially at this level that we're talking about. Let's say I just hired Jen to be my buyer specialist, okay? And I know she's incredible. She's well-trained. She's already doing transactions, you know, she's presentable. She knows everything and all that kind of stuff. And then Emily calls me, and Emily is my best friend from high school. You know, we grew up together, and Emily wants to buy a house in Miami. And I say, wonderful, Emily. I'm so excited that you're finally ready to buy a house in Miami. When are you available to meet with me? And then she's gonna be, oh, I can do tomorrow at 5. And I said, wonderful. And then I go into, are you pre-approved, all that kind of stuff. Great, I'm excited to meet you tomorrow at 5. Guess what I do? I'm gonna call Jen and say, Jen, I need you to be available tomorrow at 5, because you and I are gonna meet with my best friend, Emily. And we're gonna so please prepare your buyer presentation, practice your scripts, and be ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow, and again, guys, this is literally how I've done. I'm not telling you what to do something that I didn't do, what I don't do. Tomorrow, when she comes up to the office, you know, I'm gonna offer her some coffee or water. I'm bringing her to the conference room. Emily, I'm so excited that you're here. This is Jen. She's our team member. She's our buyer specialist. And we're gonna go over this with you. And then I'm gonna explain to them to, you know, tell me about yourself, tell me what you're looking for. And, you know, and then I'm gonna explain to her that, well, since you're, you know, one of my best friends, I wanted to make sure you get the best of the best. That's why Jen is here. So I wanted to explain to you that my role on the team is to represent sellers. So Jen is gonna help you buy a house, and we're gonna go through this process with you. And then as soon as you're ready to sell that house, there's a good chance I'm gonna be the one servicing, right? And then Jen is gonna go on and go over the presentation. And then I'm gonna stand up and say, Emily, again, I'm so happy that you're here. Jen and I are so excited to work with you. I'm gonna hop into another call, but I'll let Jen take over. Again, I'm available. Feel free to contact me anytime, but I know she's gonna take great care of me. But that's how it works. A lot of you are gonna tell me, oh, but I can't do that because of this or that. Get over it. Just get over it. That's what it takes. But I did it because I truly believe that at this level, if Emily, my best friend, wanted to hire me, I would not be doing her any favors. As a matter of fact, I would be doing her a disfavor, because I wouldn't have the time to give her the attention she deserves as a buyer, okay? And I take this business very seriously. Guys, remember, a house is usually the most expensive asset these people will ever own in their life. So don't take that lightly, okay? And if I'm not representing buyers, it doesn't matter if she's my best friend. I'm not gonna be the one. Jen is more prepared than I am. Mm-hmm. Make sense?
Can I add to that too, Hudson?
Sure.
As the buyer agent on your team, if I watch you, who told me you were only gonna sell houses and I was gonna get all of your buyer clients, take a buyer agent, not only are you doing a disservice to the client, but you're also creating a little bit of resentment in the buyer agent that you have on your team.
Absolutely. Yeah. But again, I'm telling you, there's gonna be situations that it's gonna be so tempting, because it might be a $5 million buyer. But I'll tell you what's gonna happen. If you're really doing this, like we're talking about, these levels, as soon as you take that buyer, you're gonna realize you don't have time for that buyer. You really, like, it's a hassle for you. And if Jen had taken that buyer, you would have still gotten paid well. You would have made it Jen even more grateful to be on your team. And Emily would have had a much better experience. So at the end, you have 3 winners instead of 1. Because if I take that buyer, Jen is losing, and Emily's losing. I'm the only one winning because she's gonna feel bad going to work with JJ because she's my best friend, but she knows she's getting a terrible service. Does that make sense?
Hudson, can I, sorry, interrupt real quick, just by curiosity, Vivian here. Let's just say that in the future, Jen, it's not with you anymore, okay? And Emily comes back either to sell her house or potentially buying again.
Yes.
So what type of agreement or what happened then? That's, you know.
I love that question. Who is this again?
Vivian from Brazil.
Vivian, I think that's just an awesome question. Again, I'm gonna give you my answer, like how our team looks at it. I don't know how some of you would look at it. I believe that I, as the owner of the business, need to focus on the business, right? And agents are going to come and go. I don't want them to come and go, but some of them will go for the reasons I already explained. So everything that I do is about Santana Properties team, okay? We're going to do, give turkeys to 700 families. It's Santana Properties team that's giving the turkeys. It's not Hudson. It's not Victoria, it's not Carlos, it's not Matt, okay? When we're doing pop-bys and stuff, when we're doing the calls, it's really about Santana Properties team. The ice melt that we give, it's about Santana Properties team. Again, and I will get you every point on your question, but I want you to understand that when you're building this, you need to make everything about the team. If you're just making this about that agent because you have the superstar agent and you're just building up this agent, that's great, but you're putting yourself in a position where if this person leaves, you're gonna lose half of your business, okay? So how do you do that? When you're doing your marketing, when you're doing your 36 touch, again, we talked a little bit, that's why the ISA side is so important, guys. As a team owner, I believe that is the team's responsibility to touch our database. It's not the agent response. I also believe it's their responsibility, but I know they're not gonna do it. And I know that if I just focus on pushing them to do it, great. This person is building up this great relationship and it's gonna be about this person. It's not gonna be about the team. When the ISA is calling and they're using the team script, if it's Vicky and then next year Vicky becomes an agent, it's gonna be Joseph, they're gonna feel the same way because it's really all about Santana Properties. It's not about a specific agent. Now, our agreement is that, let's say Vivian, you wanna join our team. I'm gonna tell you one of the requirements is you're gonna give me your database. And your database might have 100 people with names, phone numbers, and emails and addresses. The agreement's gonna say, Vivian, this is your database. You're giving me permission to market to all of them. When you leave the team, you can take that with you, okay? Now, any lead, any referral, any open house, any clients that you acquire because of Santana Properties team are the property of Santana Properties team, okay? And if for any reason you transact with any of these people going forward, and after you leave the team, you have to pay Santana Properties team a 30% referral, okay? That's the agreement. Now, some of you might say that's very difficult to enforce, but here's the reality. Again, I'll put Jen on the spot. I love Jen. I really do. I think she's so kind. Her husband is incredible. They're just great people. And we decided to go in business together. I'm gonna be a really good person because I am a good person. And I'm not gonna take advantage of her. I'm not gonna do things that I believe are gonna jeopardize her. But there's a chance that we might not agree in certain things. And there's a good chance that we might have to part ways. But if I was a good person and I did my side and I made it very clear in the beginning that Jen, hey, you agreed to this, you signed this, I can call Jen and say, hey, Jen, remember, 5 years ago when you came to work with me and you and I were very clear that, hey, any relationship going forward that you transact with, that we generated, that I spend money on billboards and marketing and all of this, you're going to pay me a referral fee. Do you remember that, Jen? You do, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, I know that you're selling 123 Main Street. 123 Main Street happens to be that past client that my wife sold, and then I introduced you as a buyer. And I think that's great that you have a relationship with that person, and you're in a, and you should. But now that you decide to transact with that person, I'm sending you a referral form because I also want to get my piece of the pie. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I have collected many of those referral fees, and I'm still collecting those referral fees to this day from the top agent that left my team. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's a fair game. There's nothing, what am I going to do? Pretend that he can't go knock on that door. He can't send a postcard to that person. He can somehow download the database. That's fine. And by the way, if Jan breaks that agreement, the world is round, right? Good for you, Jan, but the world is round. At one point, it's gonna bite you, right? Because now I'm gonna say, well, you really wanna know how I feel about Jan? This is how I feel. We had an agreement. She clearly is not following up with it. So would I trust her? No. If somebody calls me for an interview, do I have the right to say that? Am I being a mean person by saying that? I don't think so, because I'm based on facts. So that's but I think it's a great point. I'm glad you asked that question.
Can I make 2 quick notes on that?
Sure.
One, we also have it in our exit interview, so we just remind them and we make sure that they agree to it right before they leave.
Yes.
The other thing is, and Hudson talks about this a lot, is that it also comes back to training. So if all of our buyer's agents are coming up to our standards and are performing in the same way and doing really well, if the person does come back and isn't with the same person, they're going to have the same experience, even though it's with a different agent. Now, we did personality or whatever. Hudson uses the example of this suit company a lot.
So that is true. And honestly, at this point, we have had the agent, like a lot of the clients from the top agent that left came to us because they thought Santana Properties team, and then we referred them a different agent, and they transacted with that person. They were happy with that person. Is it always that way? No, but that is why you focus everything on the business. The suit person, and I'm also glad that Emily brought that up. I bought, I'm busy. I have to wear suits for travel and stuff. There's this company that will come to your office, and he sold me however many suits in Boston. And I had this specific experience. Like they came to my house, the guy was well dressed. He showed up on time. He had his script. Like after he sold me the suit, and he's like, by the way, I'll give you 30% on whatever, shoes or all this. Well, long story short, I moved to Miami. 2 years later, I need some suits because Wendy Papazan at one conference was like, Hudson, really? You're wearing that again? I was like, that's the only suit I have. Get used to it. So long story short, I need to buy a suit again. I called that company. It was incredible. A completely different person. This time is a blonde lady, super nice, showed up on time, super well dressed, took the measurements exact same way. Her script was the same. I mean, that's how I remember it, because it's like, wow, and it was perfect. And then she sold me the suit, and then right after, she's like, oh, by the way, here's a 30% discount on this, and that, right? Like, to me, it was incredible because, look at a company that is servicing 2 different states, and me as a consumer is getting the exact same experience, even though not only 2 different states, 2 different salespeople, but their scripts and their presentation are the same. Do you think I'm gonna keep using that company? Yes, do you think that person really mattered? I mean, again, of course the person mattered, but what matters was the training, it was the scripts, was the presentation, was the product, right? The customer service. It was not because of Joe Smith that showed up at my house. Does that make sense? To me, That's what we should strive to be. Now, is it easy? No, it's not easy. If you want easy, go work somewhere else. I mean, it's just, this business is hard work. But that's why I bring this up, because that's the idea. It should be about Santana Properties team, and it should be about the experience. One thing I like to say, you should write this down. Nobody cares about you in business. They care about the experience, okay? They care about the standards that you stand for, right? They care about your standards. That's why when you're passing it on to a buyer agent, they will be okay with it as long as they're getting the same standard of service, right? That, like, keep that in mind when you're thinking about, can I pass this buyer to another agent? Does that agent have the standards that you do? You know, did you train them well enough? If you don't, then focus on training them well enough, then putting the standards in place in order for that client to get the same experience. Any comments on that, guys?
Who is the person, who is the role who train the people, these people?
Let's get to the, oh, let me hold on to that question, but I want to talk about this very quickly, guys. How do you make more money? Okay, there's 3 ways for you to make more money. You increase your price point, you increase your transactions, or you increase your fee. Okay, so a lot of this, we're talking about growing, and some of you might say, I don't want 20 people on my team, but I still want to make more money. Well, can you service a higher price point? Again, I mentioned to you guys, our price point in Boston, as of today, is $869,000 overall. My personal average is over $950,000, or maybe it's $935,000. Emily can double check that for me. But
Hey. Oh, I'm sorry.
Certainly wasn't by luck, okay? Because a lot of people, oh, you're so lucky that you're in Boston. No, I will tell you, there are places in Massachusetts that houses cost $70,000, okay? So it wasn't luck. When I started in real estate, my average price point was $350, because I was working, if you're familiar with Massachusetts, I was working Revere, Everett. Actually, if Dustin's still on this call, we did a transaction way back when in Everett. That was my bread and butter. But I wanted to be in Cambridge and Somerville. And we kept kind of upping our service to get there. And if you look at our trajectory, we went from 450 to now 869. Last year, our average price point, I want to say, was like 825, and we're up over 50,000. Do the math, guys. If you were able to increase your price point by $50,000 and you were doing 150 transactions, it's you can do the math there, but it's about like $8 or $10 million in volume. A lot of people in the country don't do that kind of business. Does that make sense? So increasing your price point is it could be the answer, but how do you do that? You have to match the price to the service, right? The busy young professional that is making $250,000 a year, plus his wife is making another $250,000 a year. They need a different service than the blue collar worker that is making combined income of $60,000. There's nothing wrong with one or the other, but you need to understand that you need to match your service to the client, right? You know, that person might not care about,
And they'll tell you if you're not. They have higher expectations.
They will, absolutely they will. But like, that's how you go up in your price point. And again, remember guys, if you increase your price point by $10,000, right? And then you go to 20, then, you know, it's progress. Again, there's the team that we compete with in our area. When the builder, what is it called? The national numbers came up. Our team was number 3 in Massachusetts. A Real Trends, I believe. And their team was number 1. But their team on volume. When you look in transactions, our team was number 5. Their team didn't even show up on the list. What does that tell you? Their price point was just so high, and their price point is like $4 million or something like that, right? Like that's what we're striving. So we're still at 850. But anyway, increasing your fees the same way. If you're worth more, you can charge more, period. And by the way, a lot of the time, at least in my experience, the client won't even ask. You know, a lot of people assume that the commission is whatever you're telling them. So it really has to do how good you can tell your story. Okay, any comments on this at all? No? All right,
I have
let's
those
move forward.
numbers for you. Hudson, for buyers, you're at 900 average, and for sellers, you're at 959.
Thank you. And again, one clear thing, when she talks about me and doing buyers and sellers, I only work with investors. So the buyers are the same people that will in a year sell with me, okay? All right, so 5th level, guys, you're here, and again, up to this point, it should be about you. It's really like you're leveraging because you can't handle. You know, I leverage the buyers because now I'm getting so many listing appointments and I need to focus on this, right? And yes, you should not give out the listings. You might say, but I like working with buyers. Too bad. Work harder, and then eventually give up the listings. But you don't give up the listings at this point, unless you just want to stay here, and that's okay, right? So that movie Hitch with Will Smith is a great example if you have that problem. If you want to stay here, I don't know if you guys watched that movie where the guy, he tells the guy, no, your dance is right here. Where the girl that he really wanted, she likes all the crazy dance that the guy did. So he went for it and he got the girl. So on this point, you're gonna have 3 direct reports: lead manager, director of ops, lead buyer's agent. This is the way to do it, guys. I'm just telling you, like, this really is the way to do it. The stars are, I believe, because you're dividing it, right? So it's we had to separate them. On the lead manager. Lead manager is the guy that's going, or the girl that is going to be responsible for all the leads on the team, right? So on our team, it's Derek. He lives in Maine. He does all of our command marketing and stuff like that. Takes care of all of our website, all the social media stuff. So the leads go, he's the one generating the leads. Now he's the one holding the ISA accountable. And honestly, right now, that's the main focus of our team, is to work on that. Is to really figure this side of the team out. Because I'll tell you guys, once I figure this out, then I'm going to be calling a lot of you to join my team. Because we're going to be ready to expand. Why? Because we have the leads, right? One thing, guys, that I've learned from Gary again, that I think it's super important. The 2 most important boxes on your team are the leads and your admin. And the admin is the heart of your team, okay? The second thing is leads, which leads also equals value. Like, so if you're not providing leads, you're not gonna grow properly, because people might join you because they really like you, but then they're gonna leave you because you're not providing real value to them, okay? So again, we grew to this level, and I get to teach you this class at this level because we grew our team by having more business than we could handle, right? And that's what this part is all about. It's like, God, I can't service all the clients. I need to add more people. And it's fun because it becomes like a snowball, right? The more people you add, the more clients all of a sudden show up, right? So on the director of ops, you're gonna split it. You're gonna have a transaction coordinator, which we call it a closing coordinator, and we're gonna have a listing manager. Listing manager is a very important position. On our case at Santana Properties team, the listing agent goes to the house once. That's it. I mean, rarely he'll ever go back or she will ever go back to the house, because you're going to the house to get the listing. As soon as you get the listing on our team, you don't ever go back to the house, because the buyer's agents are gonna do the open houses, and then the listing manager is gonna meet the appraiser, you know, be there for the inspection. She's gonna take care of the water bill and all that kind of stuff. That's how our team works. Why is that? So the agent can focus on bringing more business to the team, okay? Calling back the leads, being prepared for the appointment, all that kind of stuff. So a listing manager at this level becomes very, very important, because the listings is what's gonna allow you to grow. Because if you have a listing and you do your job properly, one, you're gonna service your client better, but two, you're gonna generate really good leads for the team, okay? On the buyer side, and again, remember, at this level, you are the listing agent. On the buyer side, you had a showing assistant that became your buyer agent, because now you literally have so much business that you can't handle any buyers, and that person is doing such a good job that you're now promoting her to, you know, he or she earned the right to become an agent, right? And then eventually that person gets so busy that you don't go hire another buyer agent. You go hire an assistant for that person. Or better yet, that person goes hire and hires another assistant, okay? Not you. So, and I explained yesterday, model shows us showing assistant because in general, showings are a very important, you know, piece, because it takes a lot of time. In our area, because the limited inventory and the fact that most houses are only allowed showings during open houses, you don't really need to be there. You send your client, if they sign with you, you send them to the open house. So showings are not a problem, but you might need assistance with setting up certain showings. You might need assistance setting up, replying to emails, all that kind of stuff, running checks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I personally believe is that the last thing you should give out is the face-to-face with the client. And if the buyer agent is the face of your team with the client, I don't want them to be facing anybody else. At least that's my opinion. I want that agent to be always face-to-face with the client, right? So the client feels like they're really getting the attention. Like the client doesn't care that you have 20 deals in pending. You should never make a client feel like you have 10 deals pending, right? They should feel like I'm, you know, you're the only person, like you're their only client. Does that make sense? Any questions on this, guys? Nope. Okay.
I've got a question. I'm sorry,
Sure.
Brett. Okay, so listing manager. So the listing manager, are they the ones that will just go out, the ones that will go out and get the actual list, do the listing presentation? But
No.
as far as actually, okay. Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, the listing manager is basically the admin responsible for listings. You, on this point, are going to go, because all you're doing here, guys, is you only have two jobs. Your job is to be the CEO of the company right now. And your second job, so the CEO means you have 3 direct reports. You have the lead manager, the director of ops, and your lead buyer agent. Your other job is to be the listing agent. What is the job requirement for a listing agent, Jennifer?
The job for a listing agent is to go on the listings that are set already, usually, and or set the appointment to go get the deal done.
Yeah, that's it. You're gonna do an income producing activity. You're gonna practice scripts. If your ISA is setting the appointments, then you're practicing scripts. You're pre-qualifying, and you're going on the appointments, right? You might be dropping off the pre-listing package, stuff like that, right? But your focus is getting the listing. You got that listing signed, you email it to the listing manager, and they're gonna call the client, at least in our team, and say, hey, Mr. Client, we're so excited for you to have decided to choose Santana Properties team for the sale of your house.
So typically,
go ahead.
Typically, it's the outbound or inbound sales associates that are getting the interest of someone who may want to do a listing with the team, and then they pass that on to the listing manager?
Yes. So think about this. The listing manager,
They pass it to the agent, who then gets the listing, and then it gets passed to the listing manager.
The listing manager is, I have a listing signed. Now I take that listing signed and I give it to the listing agent manager, and they take it and run. What are they going to do? They're going to schedule the photos. They're going to collect the data for the MLS. They're going to basically take all of the things that the listing agent will do in order for the listing agent to be able to focus only on practicing scripts, following up with clients, and maybe lead generating, or still lead generating. Does that make sense?
Yeah, getting the deal done, in other words.
Yeah.
So from the signed agreement until, offers, the listing agent doesn't have to really do anything, because the manager is dealing with the details.
Now the offer gets accepted. Now the closing coordinator takes over, okay? And then the listing manager said, here, closing coordinator, take this over and bring it home.
Fantastic, yeah.
And then the listing agent calls them to check in and to stay in touch.
A lot of times people see these org charts. This is a great org chart. I'm going to use this for my success in the near future. And but a lot of times people don't realize it's a living organism. And that's what I'm hearing you say, how this chart is a living organism, how that living organism operates for your success and for your growth.
And for your profitability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were here yesterday, but I said to you guys, the only reason why you're in business is to make a profit. That's it. Now, what you do with that profit is completely up to you. Give it away, buy a Ferrari, buy your wife some jewelry. Definitely, even if you're giving away, definitely buy your wife some jewelry. But, that's up to you. But that's why this model will allow you to be the most profitable as well. Keep that in mind. Awesome. I think we covered this pretty well. Let's move on because we're kind of running out of time. So now
this is part 2 of level 5. Oh
yeah. Oh, go back. So this is very important, guys. I told you the last thing you want to do is to give up the listings. Okay. Now look. When we say part 2 of level 5, most likely, okay, it's not, see the bench, by the way, every time you see a bench, that means you promoted somebody from within, okay? The listings are a very important piece of your business. So most of the time, you're going to use somebody that's one of the agents, either the lead buyer agent or one of the buyer agents. That's the person you're really going to offer that position because they really know your team. They know how you operate. And that's a very important job, okay? There's so much we can talk about this. In my opinion, it doesn't mean, it might be depending on your situation, doesn't mean you give away the listings completely. This listing agent might be an additional listing agent. Here's how I did it, okay? Literally, excuse me, I got to this point and I did, Emily could fact check this, but we don't have time. But one thing, guys, by the way, that's super important is tracking every single piece of data that you can. If you follow Gary, he talks about data so much, but I'll tell you guys, whatever you can track on your team is just extremely important. On our team in 2017, I want to say that I did like 70-something transactions. Okay, I might be exaggerating by a little bit. Emily can check that. But what happened was this. I was literally dropping the ball because I was working with a bunch of developers and I was still the only listing agent. So what would happen is Terry, Emily's mom, our director of op, would call me and say, Hudson, we got this great sign call. And I was like, great. And I would call the guy and I would schedule an appointment. And I would literally like do the CMA 5 minutes before I walk into this guy's house, right? Because I'm like rushing, I'm in the car, you know, and honestly, like I'm dealing with all these developers and that's really what I like to do. So like I kept dropping the ball. I wasn't following up properly. It's a sign that, man, I need somebody, right? I need a person. What I decided to do because of our team is I said, hey, at this point, I talked to our lead buyer specialist and I said, hey, would you like to become a listing agent for our team? He said, yes. I gave all the families to him. And I only focus on working with developers. Here's the interesting fact. The following year, I did pretty much as many deals just working with developers. And that guy did 40 plus closings with sellers. What shows you like, I'm dividing my attention, I'm dropping the ball and I'm doing 70 transactions. I gave up this whole side and now I was able to focus on this one piece of our business. And that piece of the business exploded. I mean, there's some people from Massachusetts here, they can attest to that. I mean, I crush it in the markets that I work. You see our signs everywhere. You know, the development company is, you know, I work with a bunch of developers and stuff. So, but to me, it was amazing how, hey, I just focus on this. Now this person grew, they were able to do a ton of transactions, and I was able to increase our team because of that. So when I talk about, you might be in a place where you're going to give up all the listings completely, you know, depending on your situation. But in my view, this is really means I'm going to add a listing agent so they can handle the listings that I just don't have. Maybe they're further out. Maybe I have such a strong database of clients and I focus on this. And this guy is going to focus on the for sale by owners, the expireds and stuff like that. Make sense? So let's move on. Level 6.
So I'll just click through so you can see all of
And
this.
guys, all the benches here, and I want to focus on this. Again, the director of lead gen, right? Like he was the main ISA, and you promoted that person from within. The director of sales was either your listing agent or your lead buyer's agent, right? And that's the change now, is that you have a director of sales. And then you have an expansion team. Now, I wish I had it side by side, but Emily, maybe for this, we can put our org chart for the future. But can you show them our org chart very quickly? So guys, take a mental photo. You have it. Let's move to this. So look, director of lead gen, ISA. Director of ops, we have these ops. Director of sales, then we have buyer's agents, listing specialists. And then we have an expansion agent. Now, if you can go back, Emily, I'll explain it to that. So if you look at this, there's 2 differences on our team compared to this model. And I explained to you guys yesterday. One is I don't have showing assistants. I have a bunch of buyer's agents. Now, again, our buyer agents close about $15 million a year in production. So it works well, it's profitable, okay? One of our buyer's agents already closed over 20 million this year. She's making a ton of money, team is making money. So it works for our market, but in reality, what the model is telling you, and the most profitable way is really if you had less buyer's agents and more assistants, okay? But I will also disclose, that's when I told you guys the story yesterday when I taught at Mega Camp, this class, well, it was mainly, you know, going from solo to 7th level. And it really made me realize, man, my org chart doesn't look like this. That's why I'm struggling. So I went back, I printed this out, I put this in front of my office. I'm not joking. And I shifted. I started making moves. And that's why our org chart looks pretty much like this. One other disclosure is when you see here, it says that the expansion agent is reporting to you. Well, again, I am still doing transactions, okay? I'm still selling listings, but again, I work with investors. I have a director of sales. We service 2 different states. As much as we started a business in Boston, I moved to Miami 2 years ago. I still sell houses in Boston. So the way we run our team, because of Zoom and the technology, is how most people will start running their teams now, okay? As an example, Emily, she happens to be in Boston, but she lives in Philadelphia. Our director of sales lives in Maine. We have Anna, lives in North Carolina. I live in Miami. Like, we're all over the place. We do this stuff virtually. So I'm not running the expansion as a separate team. That expansion agent I have in Miami, which is doing well, he's doing a bunch of transactions. He's part of our team. He's part of every meeting. He's part of the morning hurdle. I mean, again, guys, that's why things are going to be different going forward, but better, right? Because look at all of us. Before, I would have had to fly to Austin, Texas, stay at a hotel, you know, spend money at a dinner because Jen wouldn't pay for dinner. I would have to take them out and pay for dinner for them, you know, and then, you know, I have to fly back, and it was a commotion. Now we get to do this, right? So in our team, it just happens that I didn't see a need to create something separate. So that one expansion agent, he's part of the team. That's why the director of sales is still holding them accountable and, you know, going through everything, the 411s every week and stuff like that. Make sense? Any questions on this? All right, so we have, 8 minutes left, 6 minutes left. The next slide is the 7th level, okay? And you can click on the next one.
Oh, you want me to go to 7th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just do it your time, and then I'll explain.
I think that's it.
The major difference here, guys, is that now you hire a CEO for your team, okay? Now, again, you don't have to, it's a choice. You choose to be a 7th level and you decide that you're gonna put your effort in other things, right? Or maybe you're tired and you just, you don't wanna deal with clients anymore, or maybe, again, you have other ventures. There's people in this company that are doing this at a very high level, okay? And if that's the direction that you want, you can get there. I can promise you that I could do that today if I wanted to. I'm not saying it would be easy to just find a CEO. I mean, Jen already has a job. I would try, but I think it's hard to compete with Gary. But, you could go for it. Now, I just happens to love the team, and the other businesses that I run don't affect my daily activities. My daily activities are exactly the same. The other business that I have everything to do with this team, which means if this team does well, the other businesses do well as well, okay? As you can see here, the CEO, ideally, is somebody that's coming from within. It's that rock star person. But I think the one thing you want to ask yourself is, if I give this person this job, how far they're going to take this? And that's always a question that you want when you're promoting somebody. Are they just going to let you step out? Everything's going to stay the same? And is that okay with you? Keep something in mind. We're talking about profitability. What happens every time you hire somebody? And you decide not to do that job anymore? So not every time you hire somebody. Every time you give away a job to somebody, right? Your cost goes up. So in this case, you're not necessarily hiring somebody so you can go get more clients. right? So that means you might say, hey, I'm going to hire this person because they can keep us going and stay at this level. But you have to keep in mind that that means your profitability is probably going to be lower because now you're going to pay this person, right? And you have, at this level, you have to pay somebody really well, right? So my question is that person going to keep you where you are? Are you okay making less, but not having as many responsibilities? Or do you want this to continue to grow, right? So that's the key to choose any of the top people. And remember when I showed you guys right in the beginning of this class, again, going from 5 people to 170,000, it's the 5 people that you hire. So the CEO is one of them. It's probably the most important of them. So if you're gonna hire somebody at that level, you want somebody that's going to be better than you. It's something I didn't mention in this class, but the idea of hiring anybody, it's always, I'm gonna hire this person because this person is better than me at this specific job. Like Emily did these slides, I'm not joking, probably 3 minutes. And she was making coffee while she was making this. It would have taken me probably a month to put this together and have to learn how to do the, right? Which means she's very efficient, she's really good at what she does. You know, she's definitely better than me at that job. She might not be better than me at other things, right? But that's the concept of hiring and growing is that, hey, I'm gonna give you this job because you're better than me and you're gonna take this further. So, questions, comments, concerns?
I had a question. Was there a level that you liked the most or you felt more comfortable in, maybe with like work-life balance, or maybe you just like being a listing agent or anything like that?
My work-life balance is better than it's ever been. If anything, I could say I never really had work-life balance, and I could say I have it now. Like, and honestly, I gave up my office in Miami, and I'm working from home because I literally get to have lunch with my wife and my daughters and my son. I get to see them in the morning. I get to put them to bed. You know what I'm saying? So I love like this level. Now, I'm not looking to stay at this level, but what I'm looking for is who are those people that are gonna take me, that want it so bad, and they're willing to sacrifice more than I'm willing to sacrifice right now for them to grow and for me to grow with them. Make sense? Guys, one more time, if you can help, if you took any value out of this, and if you can help us give back and, you know, give $1, $5, $100, $1,000, however you feel comfortable, that would be super helpful. And we'll also show the value, right? I think it's a immediate example of the value that we're providing through this class. So if we can go through some ahas and some questions, again, our time is up. I personally want to thank Jennifer Lewis for being so incredible and giving this Brazilian guy the opportunity to talk to amazing people all over the country. So
you're too kind. We are very grateful for your time, your energy. Just hearing from people who've been there, done that, I think is important for all of us to learn from. So we're very appreciative of you and Emily being with us today. And it looks like Emily just posted we raised $460 so far. Mm-hmm. So as Hudson answers some questions for you guys, if you could take a minute, click on that GoFundMe link, $1, $5, something just to show your gratitude. This is the way Hudson gives back for his time. And since we didn't charge anybody for this, hoping we can get everybody to give a little bit of support there.
And I will tell you, because I'm all about math, we had yesterday, well, right now we have 36 people. If you take $1,500 minus $400 and you divide by 36, that would really be the right amount to give, but I'll take anything. So, but I really appreciate it. And okay, let's go over some questions.
So we had a few come in, one that came in a bit earlier, but Jennifer did spend some time answering it, was how do you overcome co-brokes getting confused on who to contact with so many people in the listing process for handoffs?
I think that's a very common thing, but how do you overcome that is once you take the time right at the beginning to explain it to them. And a lot of the times that means you might have to email, text them, and call them to say the exact same thing. And a lot of times, you know, I'm still doing listings. So yeah, I get this co-broke that keeps insisting on emailing me. And my response is always like, Terry will get back to you. Terry will, you know, but it just shows that I didn't do a good job right in the beginning. Just like I was handing off Emily to Jen, the example that I gave you of the buyer agent, you need to do the same about your admin stuff and say, hey, Emily, I'm so excited to do a transaction with you. Seriously, I'm just so happy that we're going to be able to do this together. By the way, my goal is for us to do 5 of these. So this is just the beginning. From now on, our listing manager, Liz, is going to be the point of contact to you. And here's why. Because my job every day is to lead generate, to go on appointments. And once we have a contract signed, they take over. I am telling you, when you're calling me, you're literally wasting your time because I just don't know. I literally don't know. So don't even bother calling me. Call them. If you feel like they're not getting back to you, CC me. So if that's going to make me more comfortable, text them and text me together. I'm okay with that, right? So that way I have accountability. That's the way to do it.
And on this, the seller's end, it's in the listing presentation and it's presented as an asset. And so there are pictures even of the people with a description of what they do. So they see it up front and they say, oh, cool, soon I'll get to meet Liz and soon I'll get to meet, you know, more. Who is the role who trains the agents?
The director of sales. Before you have a director of sales is your lead buyer specialist, right? Guys, the way we compensate the lead buyer specialist is, again, Gary tells me I should never give more than 50%. So 50% always goes to the team. On our case was, okay, I'm gonna give 40% to a buyer agent to start. Once they do a certain amount of transactions, they're gonna go up to 45%. So that 10%, the way I did it in the beginning, if it's a brand new agent, that buyer agent is going to have to spend a lot of time teaching them, training them, because I don't have the time, neither do I want to do that job. But I'm giving them 10 for like 5 deals for them to handle that job, which is a huge amount of money. Once that agent hits a certain amount of money, they're going to go up to 45%. And that lead buyer agent is still going to be responsible for the 401s every week, for the training, for the hurdle, whatever it is. And that's why they get to keep that 5% of every transactions that they make. That's how I've done it. Depending on your price point, you don't need to pay as much, or you can do it differently, but that's how I've done it.
Awesome. How do you meet the developers that you work with?
Guys, that's a great question. And again, you might be in an area that you're not going to deal with developers. You might have to deal with with people that flip houses. And I actually think I said this to Jen a few years ago when we met, and I explained to her what I do. The biggest misconception with working with investors is that you need to go out there looking for investors. You don't need to go out there looking for investors. You know why? Because if I call Jen right now and say, Jen, you know how you live on 123 Main Street and you paid $500,000 for your house? It's more like 1.5 million, but this is just an example. You paid $500,000 for your house. I happen to find a house 3 houses away, same size, that I can get it to you for $150,000. And with $50,000, most likely, maybe between 50 and 100 worth of work, I can resell the house for $500,000. Would you be interested in buying the house, Jen, today? Are you able to buy the house today, Jen?
Yes.
Okay, if Jen is not able to buy the house right now, she might even say, you know what? Let me make a couple calls before I get back to you, right? And if she tells me, Hudson, oh man, that's a pain, but I can't. Okay, great, Jen, thank you. I'm gonna call the next person. You don't need the investors. Go on LinkedIn. There's 1 million people that are real estate investors. What you need is deals. That's what the investors care about. Now, there's other value that you can provide to investors, but the key is to focus on deals. So at least to the level that I got so far, I think I did 42 deals, over $40 million in closing so far this year, is by doing that. So And my best year, I did 75 closings, which is probably close to 60 million by doing that. So if you're not doing that at that level, I would use that advice. Maybe if you want to do 200 million, might be a different advice. Next, any other question?
Does the 10% giving back come out of your 42% profit?
So the answer is no. When I look at my P&L, okay, the money is the GCI that comes in, right? I personally happen to take that, or Terry, Emily's mom, our director of ops, she just takes that amount. Every time she makes a deposit in our account, she does the math and puts that in our giving account. But my P&L is not reflected of that whatsoever. It's just what I happen to do with my own money, okay? Which means it's really, when you look at net profit, it's probably more like 20+% of my net profit that I just give back. Does that make sense? So my P&L does not reflect that. But yes, it comes out of my pocket. So that means I have to sell more houses to make sure that the team is still paying their bills and stuff. Next one.
How did you formulate your investment philosophy prior to showing that value to potential investors?
Guys, when I got into the business, I was an REO agent. Actually, I worked under an REO agent. Our phone would blow off all the time with these people saying, hey, you just listed the house. What if I give you 5,000 on the side for you to give it to me? And my answer would always be, well, just make your offer $5,000 higher and then you have a better chance of getting it, right? But I realized that these people were just calling, like literally our voicemail was always full because there was always a ton of people call. If you guys remember back in 2011, 12, actually 10 and 11. So I realized like these people care about deals. They don't care about anything else. The rule, at least in our area, is that I bring you a deal and Jen is the developer. When that deal is done and they decide to list, it comes back to me. That's the rule in Massachusetts, like an informal rule. So the point is, that's really what they care about. So why are you focusing on finding investors? You should focus on finding deals. Because then, I gave you the example. Does that answer the question?
Are you ramping up your efforts for REOs now?
No, I'm not.
How do you go about finding the good deals that you offer to the investors?
How I went about it is very simple. Every person I met, I've said, Jen, it's so great to meet you again. How's everything? How's the family? How's the kids? Great. Jen, by the way, if you ever come across somebody that needs to sell a house, I'm the person you talk to. And if you need to flip a house, I'm the person that you call. I have all these people that are qualified and ready to go, and I specialize in working with real estate investors. So my answer is you focus on that, meaning, that was my priority. That's all I did. That's all I do is look for deals. And I tell people, my job is to look for deals, period. Even when I spoke with Gary, he asked me what my job is. My job is to look for deals. By the way, Gary, if you know any deals in Boston, you call me, because that's my job is. It sounds stupid or simple, but that's the reality. By the way, and then one of the big sources for me is teaching classes about investments. Because what happens is investments are complicated sometimes, and a lot of agents in your market just don't know anything about it. Again, I think that's what I talked to Jen a few years ago. Most agents will look at a house as a single family house, and that's what it is. Where in reality, it's a single family house on a 10,000 square foot lot, which is a zone for multifamily, and the minimum requirement is 5,000 square foot minimum lot size in order for you to do 2 different townhouses, right? So I could pay you market value, $500,000 for your house, because I know I could convert that into 2 units, spend another $300,000, and all of a sudden I can sell it for $1 million and make $200,000. So I focus on analyzing that. Go ahead.
So if you guys are listening to what Hudson's saying and you have no idea what he just said, that's a part of the problem that he's trying to express, and be really kind doing it. Is it goes back to your business only grows to the extent you do. If you don't understand what that is, if you don't understand how to look at properties or look at zoning or what an investor might be looking for, you're going to have a hard time attracting them to you. So after I had that conversation with Hudson, I knew I wanted to work with investors. I probably sold 100 investment client deals after my conversation with Hudson. It was something that you, like he said, you just have to focus on it, but you also have to be really well educated. You have to understand what the local regulations, requirements are, what the zoning looks like, and in Austin, things like accessory dwelling units. Those are things, if you don't know them, go do that first. The investor business isn't going to come to you unless you know how to talk to an investor.
And you would think she would send me a referral fee every now and then, right? But guys, see, I mean, I said that because I remember meeting her like a year later, and she's like, Hudson, I'm crushing with this. Guys, honestly, that's why I do this, because that gives me so much joy. I will tell you, one time at family reunion, I was on the bus going to the MAPS event, and this guy sat next to me, and I had this conversation with him. And then I told him my source of business, and he told me a little bit about his business. I'm like, dude, you should go on Craigslist and make this many ads, and just, they're automatic. And I'm not joking. The following family reunion, I'm walking on the street, this guy like, Hudson. I was like, hey, I had no idea who he was, didn't remember his face. He's like, dude, what you told me last year changed my life. I can't tell you, like, you know, but this is the cool thing, right? Like, and that's why you gotta be at these type of classes. And when you go to family reunion, you wanna talk to people, right? Because certain things will change you, but it's about how much time you're investing, learning, right? Improving. So, any other questions? Thank you, Jen, for saying that.
Of course, it's true. Veronica asked a question that I think is important. I was going to type the answer, and Mary just put one of the answers in there. Go for the boring stuff first. You got to read the actual stuff, and you're not going to understand it at first. I didn't either. Print it out, highlight it, ask questions of other people who know more than you do. If you're in Austin, there's plenty of agents in Austin that can answer those questions. You just got to look for the people who are doing it.
And I'll tell you guys, because I'm so busy running all this stuff and doing all this stuff, to this day, you know what I do? I send an email or a text message to my architect, and I make him do the work. Literally yesterday on this class, somebody texted me. Right after the class, I texted the architect and said, hey, can this become a two-family? Because it's in Boston. I don't deal that much there. Boom. He got me the answer. You know what I'm saying? So it's not sometimes not even you knowing, but it's you knowing who to go for, right? Who to ask. And
you earned the right to have that conversation with the architect after business. But for those of you who don't have those relationships right now, your title company, your lenders that work with investors, ask them, who do you know that I could talk to and ask about that when it's not a real estate or a realtor question and should go to an architect or a builder instead of a realtor.
Yes. And one very important thing, guys, recognize what your job is. If I am looking for deals and I find deals, my job as a realtor is to analyze and figure out, is the as-is value, you know, what it is, and what can I sell it for? Is knowing how much it's gonna cost to build a house really my job? No, it really isn't. I should have a really good idea, but that's not on me. Figuring out how to get financing for that deal is my job? No, it's on the investor. I see a lot of agents that came to me afterwards saying, oh man, I now have this deal, but I'm making all these calls to get financing for my investor. I'm having a hard time. I'm like, why are you making calls to get financing for an investor? You should be making calls to get other investors at this point because you have a deal and clearly your investor can't afford to do the deal. You should be calling other investors. Does that make sense? Like, focus on your thing and that will take you very far. So again, we're like way beyond the time, and I want to be respectful of Jen and the Austin Market Center. Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys being here. I hope that you're going to get something from this. I also hope that you got the point of the class. I really believe that with this kind of information and your hard work, you can net $1 million and you have the support of this amazing company. So, and I also want to thank you very much for your donations. It's super special. And again, somebody is going to appreciate it, and you might change somebody's life by doing that. So I really appreciate it. And I want to thank Emily for all the hard work that she does. This is all thanks to her for putting it together and for listening to me. You know, I can get annoying sometimes. So thank you guys.
We'll do this pretty soon.
Yeah.
And thank you, Hudson. We're so appreciative of you. Emily, before you guys go, will you just put Hudson's contact information in the chat as well? And I'm going to repost all of this, the recordings, and all of Hudson's contact information. If you guys have any referrals for Hudson in Miami or in the Cambridge, Boston area, definitely give him a call. He is our top KW agent in the New England region. And if it's outside of his area, he'll be able to connect you to a really awesome agent as well. So don't forget, referrals are everybody's best friend. So put Hudson on your list for those areas as my phone rings. And we just wanted to say a really big thank you from the leadership team here in Austin. We so appreciate your time, your energy, and you pouring into our agents here. We appreciate it. I know they do as well.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. And thank you for all the people from New England that joined this call. Again, I hope you guys enjoy, or all over the country that are joining as well. All right. Have a great week, and let's sell some houses and help some people.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, Hudson.